All right, hi and welcome. Thanks for joining us here at the TrainingPeaks headquarters in Boulder, Colorado, and thanks to everyone joining via live stream, tuning in. Very grateful to have you all here for TrainingPeaks Live. My name is AJ Johnson, and I'll be your host. Tonight, I am joined by three incredible world-class athletes, each on their own personal journey to the 2014 IRONMAN World Championships. First, we have Apolo Ohno. Now, most of you probably know Apolo from the Winter Olympics in short track speed skating. He is the most decorated U.S. Winter Olympian. He has 8 medals over the course of 3 Olympics. What you may not know is he also ran a 3:25 2011 New York City Marathon. And this year, as part of Mission Apollo, he is taking on the IRONMAN World Championships. So, good luck to you. Along the way, he is being mentored by Craig Alexander. Most of you know him as Crowie. Crowie is the 2-time half Ironman and 3-time Ironman world champion. He's also the course record holder in Kona. And one of Apollo's training partners is Mirinda Carfrae. Mirinda is, of course, the 2-time and current defending Ironman world champion. So we're just going to have a nice chat about Mission Apollo and what it takes to reach your dreams. And for any of you joining us, you want to join in the conversation, you can jump in on Facebook or Twitter. Use the hashtag AskTP, and we'll get to some of those questions at the end. So first question I have is for you, Apolo, and I think it's the question that everybody here wants to answer, and that is, why are you taking on this challenge? Because I can't think of 2 more opposite sports than short track speed skating and Ironman, and particularly Hawaii. So what is drawing you to this challenge?
Well, you know, I was retired for 4 years. My last Olympic Games was in 2010, and I just, I'd done a ton of CrossFit training, NFL training, MMA training. I was just doing all this different type of training, right? Because I was no longer speed skating. I didn't put a skin suit on. I put my skates on. So, naturally, being an athlete who spent 15 years of his life looking like a T-Rex, basically like no upper body and all quad, like massive quad, like lower body. I did the first thing that any speed skater does. We just go to the gym and start doing basically bicep curls, right? And so I spent 3 years doing that, and I was just somewhat very dissatisfied. And just kind of didn't feel like it was very fulfilling. And so I needed something to just challenge myself. And we had discussed the year that Hines did last year, the years that Hines did the Ironman in Kona. I was talking with them about possibly doing it. My schedule didn't make sense. I was traveling to Asia every 30 days, and I don't think mentally I was ready to commit. And so this year we started talking about it again. And I grew up watching the Ironman and kind of thinking this is the most inhumane thing on the planet. This is these guys are not from Earth. And me being a sprinter, a 40-second athlete, it would just seem, something very much out of my reach. Although we do my endurance world is a race called the 1500 meters that lasts 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And then I need a 20-minute break. Literally. I'm just, once my wheels fall off, I need a pull pit crew to put the wheels back on. And so I looked at triathlons, and I grew up swimming, but never really thought that it was something that I could really take on. And the challenge it just seemed so daunting to me at the time. I was a lot heavier, and I was like, this seems like something that is kind of right up my alley. Just very difficult. It's me against myself. Obviously, there's tons of other competitors there, but I think triathlons in general, although you're racing to win, like these champions, but especially someone like myself, I'm not going to even come close to the winning time. But it's really about how far I can push myself. And so, I'm 32 years old, and I'm looking for the next challenge. And this to me is the ultimate, the most coveted endurance race in the world. And obviously, there's some that are, people say is more grueling, but this is the one that kind of the spotlight is on. And what better place to be in Kona, Hawaii? So I'm very blessed and lucky to have a slot and have a space to be able to go and compete. And it's been a journey so far. So, yeah.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
So one thing that all 3 of you have in common is that you've all benefited from having coaches throughout your careers and giving you, expert instruction and immediate feedback. So for you, I guess, Apolo, how does that help you not only during your skating career, but now also now that you're in the endurance world?
Well, at least when I was skating, I felt like I knew exactly what I was doing and I knew what I needed to do. So there was actually a lot of contradiction between myself and my coaches in short track. But now I'm a total fish out of water. And so I just asked the most basic questions. I was talking to Crowie, I was like, do you eat a lot of carbs? He's like, well, kind of. So, I have the best team available at my fingertips. You know, very lucky to have that. But coaching it's extremely important. You know, especially when you're taking on a daunting competition like this, where you're pushing your body to the absolute limit at the point of basically collapse. And so you got to have everything kind of dialed in. You got to have a great game plan. And I think the battle is pretty much won in the preparation. So that's my goal, at least, is, you know, to prepare as well as I possibly can, so that when I arrive in Kona, the pressure's off my shoulders, and I can say, you know what, I've done the work. I can just go and compete now.
Right. So Mirinda, you've worked with Siri Lindley both times that you won Ironman. So how much has having someone like her contributed to your success?
It's key, as Apollo said, having that coaching support and having that person helping you dial everything down, so that you're dotting your I's, you're crossing your T's, making sure that you're getting everything done leading into a big race. I've been working with Siri for like 9 years now, maybe 8 years, and yeah, I've won 3 world titles with her. I think it's more than just writing programs, for sure. It's also that mental support, or that not necessarily mental support, but more just having that
encouragement and moral.
Just and having someone that's got your back no matter what. Having a friendship and a coaching relationship is, I think, really important when it comes to triathlon, because this sport is really tough, and and you have emotional highs and you have emotional lows. And I think the main thing when you're getting ready for Kona is to make sure you're mentally ready to tackle that event. And if you're in the right mindset, then you enable your body to perform at hopefully the best, with what the best you have.
So Craig, how much fun is it for you now to be the mentor to someone like Apollo, who obviously incredibly talented athlete, but he's still relatively new to endurance training? So how much fun is it for you to be giving him the advice and being there for him?
It's a lot of fun. It's obviously a different perspective, and to be honest, Paula Newby-Fraser is steering the ship, and we're lucky to have her. For me, I'm learning about coaching from her while we're trying to coach Apollo, and obviously she's won Kona 1 million times. I've never really had a coach. I've had different people I've worked with from time to time, but I've been self-coached. My wife thinks I'm uncoachable, so that's probably why I've never had a coach. But I've been lucky. I've had some of the greatest athletes that triathlon has ever seen as friends. McKeely Jones is one person who, when I stepped up to Ironman racing, I called her and asked her about nutrition and training, and that's more how I've done it. So for me, it's been a learning curve. Paula's definitely quarterbacking the whole thing. I've really enjoyed my time hanging out with Apollo. He's a phenomenal athlete. We went out to Boise for the 70.3 out there, his first triathlon, and it was an eye-opening experience, I think, for him. But he was in the first 10 amateurs off the bike outright. And when I flew into town, Paula and I got in the car and we drove behind him, and he's just a natural on the bike. Obviously, that leg strength and the core strength. So he has all the tools, and Paula's sculpting and structuring the training, because, as he mentioned, it's a big difference, being explosive for 2 minutes, but having to, I guess, be out there metabolizing fuel and the staying power you need for 8+ hours. So I think just because you've been a great athlete or even a good athlete, it doesn't automatically make you a great coach. I think, coaches can have been great athletes, but they're also just good communicators. They know the sport well. They have a lot of experience. They know the science, but they know how to apply it in a real sense. And I think Paula brings all of those things to the table. So I'm enjoying helping mentor Apollo, but the truth is Paula's doing a great job, and she's really steering the ship, as she did with Hines last year. And I think he did 12 or 13 hours, which was amazing, because once again he was an explosive athlete, a sprinter. And I remember chatting to him before the race in Kona, and he'd said that he'd never, throughout his whole football career, the longest he'd ever run continuously was a mile. So daunting challenge, but I think no one better to have in your corner than Paula. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I like mixing with great athletes, special athletes from other sports. I think there's a lot of similarities, even though the sports are different, and so far it's been a lot of fun.
I got a feeling you've given him some pretty good tips, though, so don't sell yourself short there. So Apollo, when talking about the training, is there anything that when you first started you thought yeah, I'm going to be pretty competent at this and maybe struggle at that? And did any of those kind of flip-flop, or did it kind of come to you as you thought it might when you first started?
I knew for me running was going to be the biggest issue, or at least the biggest challenge. I felt like biking, I could somewhat kind of muscle through it, but after Boise, just doing the half, that was my eye-opening experience where I was like, wow, I need to take this seriously or I will not finish,
Well, you had a great time for someone who didn't take it all too seriously.
Yeah, but
Very
you didn't see
impressive.
my beginning of my run. Crowie did. He's like, all right, listen, man, you got to pick it up. The woman next to you, she's 73. Time to move. I was like, oh, she's very sweet. We're having a good conversation. Yeah. So it was a big. I mean, my legs are just. When they get tired, I'm dead. So I'm learning how to essentially just become more efficient at running. I grew up swimming till I was like 11 or 12, so at least that's innate. It's somewhat natural to me. So I'm comfortable in the water. I've never swam for like an hour straight. So, but I feel like Paula will get me ready, confident. And then the bike, I think the single most important thing for me is understanding what the conditions are going to be like in Kona. Because everyone I talk to, especially from these two, say that's like the make or break it. You can be a champion somewhere else or do an incredible time somewhere else, but then go to Kona and barely make it across the finish line because of a nutrition mistake or timing or whatever it is.
And was there anything specific that they've mentioned to you that's helped you? Because obviously with short track speeds, getting your indoors in a controlled environment and it's relatively cold.
Yeah.
Kona's the complete opposite. So is there anything that Craig or Paula or Rinny has told you, said, hey, you've got to watch this or watch your pacing or anything like that you think is going to help you out in Kona?
They've all given me like awesome advice. I think the thing that sticks out the most is consistency across the board. So whether it's taking in nutrition every single mile, grabbing as much as I can, making sure I have a plan going into knowing how much and when I'm going to take, and understanding my body, right, and reading. I think anyone who's an athlete your body will tell you what you need and what you don't need. And like you said, I was in a very controlled environment. Like the ice temperature was a certain specific degrees every single time. It was fairly cold inside the ice rink. I was a Winter Olympic athlete, so I never got to battle extreme heat, except for when I was living with like the wrestlers in the Olympic Training Center, and I decided to go do the Russian sauna day. Bad idea. But it's still all very new to me, right? That's why I'm receiving all this stimulus from the training and the experience and the community around like triathlon. I had no idea how big it was. Number one, number two, like how so many different personalities in triathlon.
Right.
A lot of A-type personalities, a lot of go-getters,
true.
which
That's
is
true.
but it's a good thing, And so it makes me kind of stay on my toes, and I think they just tell me to be consistent, especially with the training. I can't, like, if I skip 2 weeks, I can't make it up later.
Right.
It's just all about like just consistency and staying true to the discipline.
So one thing about being consistent day in and day out, and that's obviously what it takes to be a champion, is, as you three know, is being able to day in and day out perform those difficult sessions, and the big key to that is obviously recovery. So maybe Mirinda, can you walk us through what's your recovery routine? You walk through the door after a hard training session. What are you doing?
Yeah, I make sure, especially if it's a longer session or an intense session, they're the sessions where I'm coming home and I know I need to get in good food, obviously drink the chocolate milk. We get gallons of it delivered to our door every 2 weeks, and in our house it doesn't last out the 2 weeks. But yeah, in this training block, we're trying to get in as many calories as we can so that we're well fueled for the next session. So eating within 30 minutes of a hard session. And then after that, it's massage is important. Rest is so important. If you can sleep as much as possible, that's the best way to recover. And then, all the little bits and pieces, Normatec boots, Compex if you have one, those sort of things definitely help. But I think the key is, that 30-minute window is so important once you've finished a session, just to get those nutrients back in so that you're recovering, starting that recovery process right away.
Apollo, for your recovery routine, did it change for you at all now that you're in endurance sports versus when you were speed skating?
I think the fuel changed a little bit, but for the most part, the timing was the same. At the peak of my career, I would carry my own food with me to make sure as soon as I was done training, I was consuming and drinking the proper nutrients. So I had the right blend of carbohydrates and proteins immediately, so I could start recovery right away.
Right.
Yeah.
Craig, you've always been talking about preventive measures to keep yourself in shape, and for you've done a series of things. So, what have you done that's allowed you to be at the pinnacle of your sport in addition to recovery?
I think the main thing, as Rinny said, eating and sleeping are the two most important things you can do to help your body regenerate and replenish. And it doesn't have to be eating after either. You can start the hydration before and even during sessions. I try and eat well when I can. And it's all the little extras, especially as you get older. What I found the last couple of years is, especially traveling, I have to be very vigilant in getting to the gym. A lot of massage, chiro, and different things. And I have a Complex that I travel with now, some Normatec boots that I travel with. And as you get older, you find that your luggage seems to grow. You've got all these little things that you need to take along, but they certainly add value. I notice the difference when I use this stuff and when I don't use it, and I think whatever level you're at, there's only so much training you can do, right. And then the benefits in performance come in between sessions as well. How you replenish and regenerate your body before you start the next session. It's not just the sessions, it's how each day goes together, the weeks and the months. It's the whole picture, the whole jigsaw puzzle. And I've always been a big believer in getting to the gym and working on core strength. I think having a good technique is not only a performance benefit, because we're in a sport that's about efficiency of movement, repetitive motion. You want to be as efficient as possible, but I think when you move the right way, you're less inclined to get injured as well. So I think it's dual purpose going to the gym. So yeah, I still do all those things. As you get older and you have kids, you find you have less time to do the things that you used to do, and your flexibility tends to get a little worse, and that's the time you really need to be doing it. But the great thing about our sport is I think there's a lot of things that you can do to really help improve your performance. It's not just the training; it's all the little things in between as well.
So Apolo, we've got about 10 weeks before Kona, and you mentioned Boise was an eye-opener for you. So, is there anything after Boise that you changed and you started to focus on in order to be ready for Kona?
Yeah, I mean, I took the training more seriously. I took my nutrition more seriously. That's pretty much kind of what it was. I was before Boise. I was traveling quite a bit for work and for business, and had some other stuff. And so Paula was kind of like, okay, you'll see what I'm talking about when you get to Boise. And I did. It was a very eye-opening experience. So after that, I kind of internally made a decision, that we all have that moment where everything kind of clicks on, and that's when we take it more seriously. And I've noticed a significant difference in my body and how I train. And I think with anything, right? When you have that assertive, kind of that very positive, okay, I have this goal in front of me, now is where I have to go. This is where I have to go. Right. You just put more effort towards it, and you're just more, just directed.
Driven.
Yeah, much more driven.
Talking about the mental aspect of triathlon, for you, Apolo, how much different is it for you doing something like Kona versus the build up to an Olympic year, where obviously the pressure there is incredibly intense, versus here it's more of a personal journey for you?
Yeah, I mean the pressure is still there because I still want to do my best, right? Obviously, it's not like the Olympics for me. It is for other athletes, right. But for me, because I'm just trying to finish this thing. That's the reality, and put up my best time. So I don't know. It's the preparation is the most important part of this for me. I wish they would take away that headphone rule. Like, I don't know how you guys do this thing. Like 100 miles with no music? It's crazy. Like no music on the marathon. What do you do outside? I was like, what do you guys think about? And he's like, well, yeah. So it's a mind game. Yeah. This sport is a total mind game, and it's about being in that. People who are in this sport, they call it that uncomfortable position, but basically you are in this box of pain, and you're just sustaining it for hours upon hours. And the guy who sounds very sexy, right? Yeah, it's like now I want to do this thing.
So what did go through your mind where you're out in Boise? Like you're halfway through the bike. What's going through your mind? You're saying, I wish I had my headphones right now.
No, I was just in so much pain. So I guess that's part of it, right? I went way too hard on the bike. I flogged myself on the bike. I probably should have drank more water and took more salt in. And I remember, in Boise, we do 2 laps, right? And so, there's a mile marker for like mile 3, and then also like, one that's whatever, mile 8 or whatever. So the first 2 miles, for me, I was like, there's no way that was only 2 miles. So I got to mile 3, I swear it was like 7.5. I had to ask like 4 people. I was like, are you in the first lap or second lap? He's like, first lap. Is this right? He's like, yeah, you're only at mile 3. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to call Uber. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, because you're not used to grabbing a gel or a bottle of water or short track speed skating. You don't have to worry about that.
I got 40 seconds. I don't need to grab anything.
Yeah, right. It's totally different for you.
Yeah.
Getting back to the mental side of things for you, Mirinda, they say that the only thing harder than winning an Ironman World Championship is defending. And Greg, you can speak to that a little bit as well. But is there anything you learned from the last time you came in as a defending champion that you're being able to utilize this year?
I think just being a little older, a little wiser, and also knowing what was in store for me. When I won in 2010, I took all the opportunities that were given to me with that world title, but maybe overdid it a little bit.
Yep.
And that took away from my training and my preparation for 2011 World Champs. So yeah, this year I've completely changed my schedule because I knew that, starting, the first of this year, it'd be different. Everything would look different. I'd have more commitments. I'd be traveling a little bit more. So I sort of threw out the plan that I've used and has worked very well in the past and replaced it with, some different races. That was also to keep it fresher for me.
Sure.
But also just to sort of not be married to one specific plan. But that being said, I've kind of made sure that the first half of the year I took care of most of business commitments, so that this time of year I can really put my head down and focus. And we're 10 weeks out now, and this is really the big Kona training block.
Right.
I needed to be in pretty decent shape at this time of the year. I feel that I've accomplished that, so I'll be able to handle and absorb this next block of training. So yeah, we'll see what happens in Kona, but I feel that I'm in good shape now, and it'll just be me. It'll just basically the next 8 weeks will dictate what will happen in Kona. If I'm able to nail this next 8 weeks of training and really get the most out of myself, then I should be ready to go.
So Craig, how difficult is it to defend that title? Because you're one of only 4 men to ever do that. When you think of all the people that have won Kona that haven't been able to defend, it's a pretty elite group.
Yeah, I think the girls have had more success, to be honest.
Yeah.
Paula was able to defend,
Right.
Natasha was able to defend Chrissy, so I think maybe, I don't know, if it's a situation where they have a better temperament. I know for me, from the minute I won the first one, it was the question I got asked all the time, how are you going to defend? And everyone kept throwing that stat at me, how hard it was, and I wanted to do it very badly. And I think the key with what Mirinda just said was having the confidence that you're a good enough athlete. There's a number of different ways you can prepare. You don't have to do it exactly the way you've done it in the past. And that, I wanted to do it exactly the same way. I felt that was the way I had to do it. When I went there the first time, I got second, and then I won the second time. So when I was trying to defend, it was still only my 3rd time there. And
It's pretty impressive.
well, I just felt impressive. I was probably too insecure. I wasn't confident in my ability to, and that's where I think a coach would have been helpful. I wasn't confident in my ability to mesh the training with all the commitments that I had, and I remember just being so paranoid that I had to replicate every single session the same way, but I had twice as much travel, 10 times as many commitments. Sometimes I would go somewhere and I'd have a long run to do, and I wouldn't get home until 8 o'clock at night, and I'd go out, rather than go to bed, which would have been the smart thing, I'd go out and run 2 hours, and I'd be still awake at 2 in the morning. And I think obviously that kind of work ethic and discipline helps, but it also can hinder you sometimes too. So I think the key with what Rinny said is just, you got to minimise the stress. And part of your job as a professional is, as a young athlete, you dream about having sponsors, people who will pay you money to ride their bike or wear their shoes, and if you're very lucky, you get the pick of what you want to use. But you have to find ways to be a great, spokesperson and ambassador for those companies while still fitting in your training, because ultimately that still is your job. And And I think Rinny's been very smart this year, done a few different things. You know, we were talking today, she did Roth a couple of weekends ago, and it's the first time she's done an Ironman outside of Kona where she's been in the ballpark of being fit. And yeah, I just think it helps not to be able to just comparing to the year before or the years past all the time. I think you need to free yourself of those shackles and really just be in a good place mentally and physically come the end of July. Because as you mentioned, it's 10 weeks, and 10 weeks, it's not a long time, but it's a long time. When you've been doing the sport many years, you have a huge base to call on. And you know, no one's really, when you hear a professional athlete say they're unfit at this time of year, they're not unfit, they're just not World Championship fit. So, and it's probably 5 or 10%, and that's the hardest 5 or 10% to get, mind you. But yeah, it's hard to do. But you know, ultimately, when I got on the start line that year, that was the first time I actually relaxed for 12 months, and I got some clarity. I just thought, you know what, it doesn't matter if I don't win. It just matters. For me, the most important thing is I put out what I think is a very worthy title defence. And if I do that, I'll be more than happy. And yeah, I was lucky enough. I was actually overtrained going into the race, but I hung around long enough to be where I needed to be in the run. So, but yeah, you learn a lot of lessons, and I've certainly have never been that overtrained going into Kona since. I mean, you need to train hard, but I think you need to do it at the right times as well. And the right time is not the last 2 or 3 weeks. You know, leading into a hot, humid race, trying to play catch up.
So, Apolo, we're talking a little bit about expectations going into this. So, my question is, have you talked to Heinz Ward at all? Do you have any? Did he give you any tips or anything? Because he's probably the only person, you know, closest to your experience. And is there something about you? Maybe you just want to just beat Heinz a little bit. I gotta imagine you're fairly competitive. I gotta imagine.
No, I will beat Heinz.
Whoa! All right.
Let's make that clear. I know Heinz is a good friend. And he gave me great advice. He's like, I'm praying for you. I was like, whoa, did I really get myself into this? Yeah. So it was, you know, Heinz is great. I mean,
right. It's amazing effort what he put out.
Where he started and where Paula brought him was so incredible. And we're talking about a guy who's had so many surgeries on his body. Anybody who watches football knows that these guys are like, some of these guys can barely get out of bed without taking like a handful of pain pills, right? They're just broken. And then he went from doing, talk about being a ballistic athlete, his plays last 4 seconds long. And then these guys had like oxygen masks on the sideline, you know? And so he went from that to like completing this Ironman. I personally think it was such a big life change for him. And I think it's, you know, it's probably going to help motivate him. This is a guy he's an NFL legend. Right. And then the day after he finishes the Ironman, goes and gets a tattoo of the Ironman logo on his leg, on his calf. So he spent, 15, 16 years in the NFL, right? And he's got like, you know, obviously he's like in the Hall of Fame, but now he's got, so that's how important it was to him. And so that to me was like, wow, this is an incredible journey. And he kept just emphasizing, he's like, look, when you're there, obviously you want to go hard and you want to go fast. You won't win it. So understand that this is a really special place to compete in. And you want to be able to tell your kids about it. Because maybe you will or you won't do another one, but if this is the last one you do, make sure you appreciate it in its entirety. I thought that was incredible advice. Yeah.
Right. So have you been out to Kona at all? Have you?
Not yet.
Okay, so you're just going to go out, do you have a plan at this point? Or?
I would like to, we were just talking about it, Paula and I were just talking about it. She would like to see me out there through like a small training block of time. I'm not sure if I can, but I'd like to. You know, I'd like to. I have like 35 friends coming to quote, watch me in the Ironman, AKA party in Hawaii. Yeah, so I'm gonna do my best, you know?
Right,
I'm excited.
That's kind of what Ironman's all about, and I think that's the challenge for everyone, not just the champions, but the age group as well. So we're gonna start with some of the questions that we got in via social media. So question here is for you, Apolo. Is what is the most valuable lesson you've learned from your triathlon coaches? So if you had to pick just one, the single most important tip from anybody.
They all kind of say that all the, you know, I mean, look, I've got Paula, Rinny, Crowie here. I mean, the living legends of the sport. And they all, I think collectively, they all kind of say the same thing, is that to the consistency and the belief in the consistency of the training. You know, sometimes you can't get in exactly what you want to get in, but the fact that you're doing something every single day towards that specific goal is going to pay off in the long run, rather than doing these like ups and down, peaks and valleys of training, which is what I'm used to as a sprinter, right? We go really hard for like a day or two, and then we back off for like 3 days. And this is more kind of like a real clear stepping stone.
And how have you been able to handle that with like the travel and all the other commitments? So when you have a day where something's on the calendar and you know, due to some other various commitment, are you the type that just, I can't get in that hour-long run, so I'm just going to go do 30 minutes on a treadmill down in the hotel?
Yeah, I mean,
It comes to that.
when I first started out, I was very relaxed about it. I was like, well, I don't really need to do a 2-hour bike ride in a stationary. It doesn't really make a difference. And now I feel like I'm becoming much more OCD with my training. I travel here, I call Paul, I don't know if I can get the full 65 minutes in. What if I just do 58? And she's like, are you kidding me? This is like ridiculous.
Type A.
Yeah. So that switch is turning on. But yeah, it's the travel is difficult. That's just the bottom line. Because you're tired, you're changing time zones. Being in a plane, there's
Do you
so
travel
many
with a bike?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean I have, but
Not consistently.
I don't go long enough to places to really kind of break down a bike and So I usually save my running and swimming for when I start to travel.
Okay.
Because you can run anywhere, whether it's rain, snow, it doesn't matter what's going on outside. You just put your running shoes on. If you have the right gear, and just go out the door. That's the beauty of running.
So you got another one here. So again, for you, Apollo, what elements of your previous training have helped you in prepping for triathlon? So is there anything from your speed skating days that is carried over?
I think obviously like the core strength,
Yeah.
the leg strength, quad strength, and then I think the mental discipline to persevere, right? I mean, for the Olympic athletes, although we compete every single year, our spotlight is not every World Championships. We had the World Championships, but for us, the real spotlight is once every 4 years. And so we commit 4 years of our life towards this race that lasts 40 seconds long. We got to be absolutely perfect on that day. So, I'm used to having that commitment level day in and day out, that relentless pursuit, and that kind of that insatiable desire to always be the best I can be every single day. And that was gone for 4 years, right? I kind of left that behind. I was focusing on business and other things, and it's very refreshing to have that back in my life. But I feel more like me. That makes sense, right? So, this painful journey has been a blessing in disguise. It's been amazing.
So last question then is, how comfortable are you with each event now that you are more experienced? So obviously post Boise, you feeling a little bit better?
I'm much more comfortable now, but I'm still very uncomfortable. Yeah.
Well, that's just triathlon. That's just the nature of it.
Yeah, I think that's. You see, she said it. We ran this morning. We did these mile repeats, and I forgot what Rinny said something like, it's gonna hurt, and she's like, it's gonna be great, Okay.
Have you had that experience then, where you're like, I feel really terrible, and then 5 minutes later, you're actually in that place where I've come through, I've broken through that, and now I am feeling good. Have you had that experience?
Yeah, I've had that. I've had that on a bike a couple times. I've had that during the run, and it's a pretty euphoric experience, right? I mean, the endorphin rush you get, the chemicals released in your body. There's been times when I've gone out for runs, and I'm just like, God, this feels so easy, and I'm hitting all the time. It's just a beautiful feeling to get in. There's been a lot of books written about like being in the zone, in the flow, and I've read I feel like all of them, and it's it's hard to replicate outside of sport. I can tell you that, and I've tried to do it in business and other aspects of my life, but there's nothing that truly puts you head to head with your own fears, insecurities in the moment, and gives you instantaneous feedback right then and there. If you either perform or you don't, it lets you know right away. And that's the beauty of sport, right? Because it's like an always evolving life lesson. It's very cool.
Well, I want to thank all three Chocolate Milk athletes for taking the time to be with us tonight. We very much appreciate it. And good luck to everyone in their training leading up to and during race day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So if there's anything that we didn't cover, any question that you have out there, just raise your hand and I'll grab you and yell real loud. All right, in the black hat, what do you think?
Rinny, what's your FTP?
What does
Good.
that mean?
Your functional threshold power. I can
Tell him. Maybe it's a secret.
Yeah, I guess my guess would be probably around 250, 260, I would say. Now, the thing you have to realize is that it's not just FTP, it's watts per kilo, right? Yeah, watts per kilogram are the thing, and yeah, no, and
118 pounds.
see, she's not insecure about it at all. So that's the thing is, you know, we know that for the pro men it's about 4 watts per kg, and for the pro women it's about 3.3 to 3.5, and that's the best way to do apples and apples. And I guarantee you she's hitting that on maybe not right now, but on race day, for sure. Striped shirt.
One for Crowie. So you've always been a great cyclist. However, when you sort of, in 2011 I think it was, where you suddenly went 15, 20 minutes quicker, was it?
13.
He doesn't keep track, but
So just apart from your specialised shift course, exactly how did you do that?
all right. So I'll just repeat. So if you didn't hear, so real quickly, his question is basically, how in the world did you go 13 minutes faster than ever before in 2011?
Yeah, I think there was 2 things. You know, the year before, obviously I won in 08 and 09 on the run. And I think in 2010, my competitors got together and came up with a plan which worked. And, you know, I knew about it in advance, but I also thought that I would have the run leg to spot anyone 5 or 8 minutes. And that was my first mistake. But I think when you've won a race a certain way, you continue to use that recipe, so to speak. So after 2010, you know, I got some great advice from a friend who said, you know, stop worrying about what the others are trying to do. This gives you the chance to do what you've always wanted to do, which is ride the bike hard. So the first thing was, I think it was a change in mindset. I went there the following year, not just waiting for the run. I wasn't waiting for the other guys to make moves. I wanted to make a few of the moves on the bike. And the equipment made a huge difference as well. Obviously, you don't change bikes 2 weeks before a world championship unless, and I don't want to go into too many details. I don't want to get sued again, but you know, what had been promised hadn't been delivered. And I went and did my own testing, and I saw, you know, 2009 really was the year when I guess there was a revolution in time trial bikes. The super bikes came, you know, Specialized launched their Shiv, Trek had their Speed Concept, Scott had the Plasma, Feld had their bike. All the big companies released a time trial specific bike, triathlon specific time trial bike, and you know, there was a lot of talk, was it marketing, and I went and did my own testing, and it made a huge difference. You know, I actually averaged, I think it was 2 watts less in 2011 than I had the year before, and went 13 minutes quicker. Obviously, that in itself, the way you spend those watts says a lot, but the actual files overlaid on top of each other are very similar in the way I spent the energy. It's just one was, you know, I was going a lot faster for the energy expenditure. And, you know, it's no secret. It's not just marketing. You know, training and getting fit is most of the battle. And then with aerodynamics, 80 or 85% of it is your position on the bike. But, you know, when you're trying to win the race, and, you know, when I went to the wind tunnel, I took independent people with me and tested a whole lot of different bikes. And obviously I was mainly concerned with what I was riding compared to everything else. And I had this number cruncher. He was a PhD in statistical mathematics, and he was trying to talk to me in, you know, pounds of drag. And I said, just give me a number, 112 miles. And he said between 10 and 15 minutes, and I was 13. So I think it was 2 things. It was a change in equipment, but it was also a change in mindset and attacking the bike more, not just waiting for the run. So
It was impressive. Anything else? Oh, green hat.
Oh, how was your experience on Dancing with the Stars transferred over to the training?
All right. So the question is, how your experience with Dancing with the Stars, did anything transfer over into triathlon?
Nope. Nothing can save me. The show was awesome, but I was never really in pain on the show. I mean, the worst pain is wearing those ridiculous outfits. That's about it. No, it was an awesome show, but this is a totally different animal. Yeah.
Right here, blue shirt.
For each of you, what's been your favorite moment that you kind of replay in your head throughout?
All right, so real quickly, the question is, for each one, what's your favorite moment? I'm assuming within triathlon, the one that you're like, wow, that was the one. Start with you, Mirinda.
Mine would probably have to be 2013 Kona. Having my fiance wait at the finish line for me, having had a successful race himself, top 5 in the men's race, and with our wedding only a month or 2 away, with a big wedding bill to pay, that was really special. Having a great day there.
I mean, I've only done 2 triathlons
You don't have to think that hard. You don't
in my life,
have to think back that
and
much.
both were horrific. They've been getting better, but honestly, this entire experience has been awesome. So I'm I joke about it being horrible and like horrific, but the truth is I actually really do enjoy it, and it's just been amazing. So I'm looking forward to Kona.
I think the first World Championship is special for any athlete. On a personal level though, I've never really raced for money, but I won a race in 2005, which at the time was the largest prize purse in the history of the sport, and we had an 8-week-old daughter, and I was sick of hearing friends and relatives ask me when I was going to get a real job, and so as a father, I had that pressure. It's one thing when you're doing it for yourself. I think when your family comes along and gets involved, there was certainly another level of pressure. So winning that race was very special actually, because it paid our house off back home, and we put a lot of money aside for our daughter, and just enabled us to travel as a family. So.
Sometimes not every workout is your best workout. You may not feel the best. What do you tell yourself, and what advice do you have to pick yourself up and move on to the next workout? Any thoughts?
All right, so the question is basically, when you're having a terrible day on the bike or run or swim, whatever it is, what do you say to yourself to get yourself through that session and make it a positive one?
I think when you're in heavy training, you might only have one good session sometimes every 2 or 3 weeks. So, I mean, the first thing you should say is, I must be on track, I'm doing the right thing. I think sometimes when you're this close to quitting or giving up, you're also this close from an outstanding performance somewhere down the track. So just stick with it. It's about consistency. You're not going to set personal records every day, and you're not supposed to. The way training is, you're overloading and subjecting your body to different stimulus and trying to get those adaptations, and sometimes you don't see the fruits of that too often, and it is discouraging, but you just got to stick with it.
Mirinda, for you?
Yeah, exactly what Crowie said. I was just thinking, I think we more like celebrate the good sessions because you don't have them that often. So there's so many bad sessions, it's almost like it's an everyday routine. Okay, this session sucked. What am I going to have for lunch? It's just part of it.
Thank you.
Right in the middle there.
What about favorite food, like your go-to meal after long week training?
All right, so the question is, after a really long, hard weekend of training, favorite food, what are you going for? What do you reach in the fridge? I'll start with you, Apollo.
I
honest.
usually don't eat at home. Like for my favorite foods. I go out with friends, and I try not to gorge myself like I did. I learned that lesson before Boise, but I love food. So like, anybody who follows me on Instagram, like half of it is food. I apologize in advance if you check it out. It's disgusting.
Craig, for you?
Anything. I mean, I love pizza, chocolate, donuts. I eat healthy too, though. Anything in moderation. I've been doing it 20 years, so you've got to enjoy it as well. I think so long as you're fueling your body and recovering the right way, it doesn't hurt to have a glass of wine. If that's what you want, have a beer. I don't mind having a beer at the end of a hard training day, or a pizza. Margarita.
An entire pizza?
Yeah, why not?
All right. Mirinda, for you?
One of the things Crowie used to always say, still does always say, is if the furnace is burning hot enough, anything will burn. So I think,
World champion advice.
I didn't think anyone was listening.
I listen to you, Crowie. Pretty much, I mean, when you're training this hard, 30 plus hours a week, I mean, I come home and I'm like, what do I feel like? I eat whatever I want. Nothing's off limits, pretty much. Burgers, pizza. I love burgers and fries after a race. Big margarita. We drink a lot of wine at our house too. But yeah, when you're at this level and training so much, it's more about keeping the weight on. So you're trying to, eat as much as possible to try and keep that slight layer on. Once you dip under that, weight threshold, whatever that is for you, you open yourself up to injury and certainly sickness. I get, run down and colds and so forth. So I found if I'm like an extra pound in my training block, if I can hold that on, then I'm less likely to get sick and, I can get more training done. So, yeah.
Not a problem for me.
So I have a similar related question. I wasn't sure I was ready to ask this, but Melissa Hauschild couldn't be here tonight. And she had a question for Crowie that she wanted me to ask.
Okay.
And it was, how many donuts have you eaten today?
None. And that's
No,
true.
no donuts.
No donuts today. I don't eat them every day, just once in a while. Yeah.
His favourite at when we've done a lot of long rides, Crowie and I, together over the years, and we do this ride up to Estes Park. It's about 100 miles, maybe a little longer. We go to the same shop. He gets a donut and a chocolate milk, without fail, every single time.
Actually, I'm heartbroken because I was there.
It's closed.
It's closed. Our shop is closed.
I know.
I'm blowing up about it too.
There's another shop though. I found one.
Oh, good.
I'll show you.
Now, I heard a story. Boulder's a fairly small community of endurance athletes, so, stories fly. So I heard a story, and Mirinda, you can talk to this a little bit, that Craig here kind of steals your chocolate milk every once in a while, huh? Is this true? Can you confirm this?
Well, he doesn't have to anymore,
have to
but
anymore.
Before he was sponsored by chocolate milk, he never stole it. We always gave him a few bottles to hold him over.
Rinny would
because-
organise I'd get a shipment, which was good.
Yeah.
Nothing too bad. Anyone else? Right on the side there.
I have a question for Mirinda. Did you ever have a moment where you had a breakthrough with your endurance training, where you did something and after you did it, you're like, oh my gosh, like I did that. How did I do that? And if you did have that moment, what was it?
All right, so the question is for Mirinda here. Have you ever had a moment in your training where you pushed yourself so far and so hard that when you got done with it, you said, how did I actually do that? I cannot believe I just accomplished that. And if so, what was that moment?
There's not really any, one moment that sticks out in mind. I remember when I first started triathlon, I was a basketball player, and so, that's kind of an explosive, short, sprint sport. But when I first started, the first couple of years, I was training with triathletes that had been triathletes for, a number of years, and I'd always outlast them. So I'm like, I'm the basketball player. Maybe I've been in the wrong sport all these years. Clearly I had. But yeah, there definitely have been sessions over the years where I've kind of gotten home and been impressed with myself, I guess, if that's what you're asking. I guess for the most part, I set my standards very high, so it doesn't happen very often. I usually fall short of what I hope to achieve, and I'm always adjusting those goals and have higher and higher expectations. But yeah, sometimes you sort of you get home from a week of training, and it's more like when you're looking back on what you've done and you're like, wow, this was a solid block and I completed all of this and I was able to run those times and hold that much power on the bike for that amount of time. But my big moments have more come in Kona. Certainly in 2013, I was able to sit down with one of the TrainingPeaks guys and go over my power, and I always felt that I was underperforming on the bike, and I never felt that I was as good as the other girls on the bike. Yet actually we sat down and we looked at my power, we compared it to some of the top women in the world, and I was right there, exactly the same watts per kilo, or maybe even better than some of them. So for me that was wow, that's really cool, because I've been working so hard on my bike to try and catch up to the best girls in the world, and to see those results on paper in the biggest race on the biggest stage was incredible.
All right, one last question.
What do you guys do with your old equipment, like your old bikes? Specifically, Miranda, what do you do with your old bikes, 650s, and is it for sale?
All right. So the question is, what do you guys do with your old gear from years past, and specifically to Mirinda? Is your 650 bike available? Are we going to see it on eBay, Craigslist, garage sale anytime soon?
And typically, a year or two later, sell them. But yeah, my 650s are gone. My bikes are kind of in high demand. I get emails once a month people asking for bikes. So I don't get to hold on to them for very long. Although I've kept my Kona 13 bike. Actually, it's in the Felt headquarters. And I also still have my 2010 World Championship bike. That's at my brother's house in Australia. So I do have one 650, but that one's special to me.
Craig, for you?
The Kona winning bikes went to sponsors. Last year's bike I donated, there was a good friend of mine actually was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease and they had a big fundraiser, so I donated it to the fundraiser. Yeah, sell them, I guess. I don't know where they go. I get plenty every year, but my
It's a
wife.
problem we all have. I don't
Yeah.
know what happened to that bike.
No, I mean I normally have 2 or 3 in the garage at any time. A mountain bike, a roadie, and a race bike. But yeah, sell them to training buddies or whatever. They seem to go.
All right, well, thanks again to all three of you. Very much appreciate your time, and good luck again in October.